Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Line Bodybuilding, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about rep speed. And somebody just asked me about rep speed, and I've talked about this lots of times, but they specifically mentioned that Mike Mentzer talked about the cadence of a certain amount of seconds up and a certain amount of seconds down. Can't remember what it was, like 4 seconds down and 2 seconds up, or I don't know, whatever. But they basically asked me, they said, Jason, I noticed that your cadence is much faster than that. So what are your thoughts on slow reps? So again, you're like a painter, you're like an artist when it comes to lifting weights and bodybuilding. You're using all sorts of different brushes and colors in order to stimulate the body into muscular growth. Now, slow reps I use from time to time, but for much different reasons than optimal muscle growth. For instance, sometimes I'll use a slow rep when I feel like the joints aren't moving properly, or things seem a little crunchy, right? Or things look like they're or muscles seem tight, or there's not a lot of blood flow. So a lot of times I'll start with a slow rep in order to warm the body up, in order to not be quite so aggressive on the muscular damage and therefore be safer on the joints. So that's one way that I will use a slower repetition. But what I did a long time ago is an experiment in slower reps and faster reps, and what I noticed is during slower repetitions, I noticed that I was not getting the same type of growth or strength gains. I noticed that I started to flatten out. Like there was something that I gained from the explosive movements that was more beneficial for muscular growth than doing just time under tension itself in the slow rep form, right? So a lot of times people say, well, rep ranges don't matter, it's just time under tension. Well, I will say the quality of the rep also matters. What type of rep is it? Is it explosive? Is it slow? This also makes a massive difference in how the muscle will respond. Because you can argue when you're doing a slow repetition and really lowering weight slow, there's a different type of endurance fiber that is involved, or a certain type of action that requires a different, let's just say, way that the muscle is going to fire. So because of this, I noticed that I will use slow reps from time to time. I do believe that it's a great way to refine a groove and also to stimulate those slow twitch fibers aggressively. But you're going to notice that there's going to be an optimal speed for you, and it may not be the super slow repetition. Now, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you if one type of rep works or another type of rep. I saw a guy back in the day, he was a natural bodybuilder, and he got awesome results from doing super slow reps, and he wasn't really using a lot of weight because his reps were so slow, like they were almost like turtle speed, but super controlled. And he had a great physique. Like it was an awesome physique. But I tried doing that for months on end, and I noticed that in the first week or two I got really sore, but then after that it was almost like my body was not stimulated enough. It would start to flatten out. I started to not, although I'd get a good pump, I started to not feel like the muscles were engorged with blood anymore. I started to also lose strength. I started to lose the groove and some muscular size, right? And that's the whole point. So you have to play around with these things, and sometimes it takes you a month or two to figure it out, but you'll start to notice that one size definitely does not fit all, and sometimes one technique is great for a period of time, but it's not great as far as a standalone sort of way to approach your workouts. So that's what I noticed, because I do love the look of a slow rep, and I will incorporate it with certain exercises more than others. So say there's a certain part of the bicep curl you realize that you're using a lot of shoulder, and you want to take the shoulder out and you just want to do slow eccentrics. I think these are awesome techniques to incorporate in your training, but you're going to notice that it's just a different type of technique. It's not necessarily a right technique or more right than another technique. It's just hitting the muscle from a different angle in a lot of cases too. Because sometimes using momentum in the right strategic way can actually increase the stress on a muscle and increase the ability of adaptation, right? It's not always slow rep means more stress. Sometimes it means less stress because you're forced to use lighter weight, and it does make a difference. I hate to say it, but some people say it doesn't make a difference. No, yeah, it actually does make a difference. I found it totally, 100% does make a difference if you're using heavy weight or lighter weight. And yeah, sometimes a little bit of explosiveness in your exercises is useful, especially if you're already warmed up and you're doing it safely, right? So that doesn't mean bouncing around ballistically and out of control, but it means that you're at least exploding the rep, and maybe you're not going super slow on the way down. Now, once you get into super heavy weights, I'd recommend being conservative and coming down a little slower on the way down, because you don't want to bounce off the bottom with momentum and a lot of weight. And of course, instability, because that's the triple threat for muscular tears and problems. But again, it doesn't mean that you're doing slow reps all the time. So yeah, I hope this answers your question. I hope this helps out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturallandbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the patron supporters, and take care for now. Mountain. Yeah, there's a mountain there. Natural land.